So hello everyone. Today we are having the third event of the initiative by TESOL-Italy in support of TESOL-Ukraine. And this week we are dedicating to ESP. And not only ESP in Italy and ESP in Ukraine, but you will also have a chance to ask any questions about teaching English for special purposes at a place where you are. And I'm giving virtual microphone to Mike, who will introduce our speakers today. Mike, please.
Okay, sure. Maria Grazia, did you want to say a couple words or should I start right away?
Yeah. No, I just want to introduce yourself.
But please do the introduction.
A member of the TESOL-Italy executive, not only, but I think that he can say something also about his involvement in TESOL International and something about today's topic.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mike, for your commitment and collaboration in this initiative.
Okay, thank you. I see that, Sharon, I see that you're sharing. Would you mind stop sharing for just one moment? So excellent, so that I can share.
You know, we were so proud that we started with sharing. We thought it was so cool. We trained for 5 minutes, like we are sharing, and then everyone comes and they see, but yeah, sorry.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. It looks like I'm sharing my screen now. So yes, my name is, as Maria Grazia has just said, my name is Michael Ennis. I'm based in Italy. I'm a member of TESOL-Italy. I'm on the executive committee of TESOL-Italy, but I'm also involved with the English for Specific Purposes intersection of TESOL International Association. And before I introduce our speakers today, I just want to say a couple words about that and maybe encourage some of you to get involved with the intersection. I am the chair-elect of the intersection, which means after this cycle, I will become the chair. Our chair, Jennifer Roberts, is traveling. She wanted to be here today, but she's traveling and couldn't be present this week. She's traveling this week. And all of the members of the steering committee of the intersection, all the active members of the intersection very much support this initiative and are very happy to participate in any small way to lend our support to this initiative and to TESOL-Ukraine. Just to tell you a little bit about the intersection. So it's open to all TESOL International members with an interest in English for specific purposes, whether it's for occupational purposes, so EOP, professional purposes, occupational purposes, or English for academic purposes. So sort of covering all of those ESP sectors. It's a community of practice for ESP practitioners and researchers around the world. So it really is international, like the International Association. It brings ESP practitioners together from around the world on all continents. We manage a community page. So TESOL International on their website gives a community page to all the intersections. I'm going to share this slide in the comments so that you have access to this information, but there's a link here that takes you directly to the community page. If you're not a member of TESOL International, you'll be able to see some of the information and some of the posts there. You won't be able to post anything and you won't have full access, but you can get an idea of what's going on in the community page. The intersection also publishes a biannual newsletter. They're always looking for the editor of that, Kevin Knight is always looking for new submissions. He's hoping that maybe some of the speakers this week will be willing to submit a brief article to that, but anyone else who's involved in ESP and you want to get involved in some way, even submitting a newsletter article would be very much welcome. The intersection also organizes academic and what they call intersection panels at the TESOL International Convention. That's one of the big things that we do every year. Intersection panels are where two different intersections get together and they try to find some common theme amongst them to organize a session at the convention on. In addition to that, we organize networking and a continuous professional development events throughout the year, sometimes autonomously, but often with support from TESOL, whether they're giving us their YouTube channel or Zoom or something like that. And generally speaking, the aim is to promote best practice and the work of our colleagues around the world by sharing resources and information through our community page and our newsletter. One very good example of this is something that Kevin Knight, the editor of the newsletter, has been doing for very many years. He's been writing these ESP project leader profiles. And essentially what these are, they're profiles of ESP practitioners who've led some project related to English for specific purposes. It could be something small, just developing a syllabus for a particular course, or it could be something bigger, writing a national curriculum or something like that. And he asks questions. It's sort of like an interview format. Each one of these profiles occurs in the newsletter, but recently he's compiled those into a book. And it's really a good resource, a very invaluable resource on what ESP practitioners are doing around the world with their ESP projects. And you can download the free ebook here. And most of the people who've been profiled are somehow involved in the intersection. And so it'll give you a lot of ideas of what we do and what's going on. So please, I'll share this information in the chat. Please reach out. I'll also share my email address. Please reach out to me if anyone wants to get involved with the intersection and check out these resources. Okay, so now that the shameless self-promotion is over, we can move on to our speakers today. I have the great pleasure of introducing our speakers, Sharon Hartle and Valeria Franceschi, excuse me. I was confused by your director for a second. Oops, that just disappeared. Okay, good. Both of whom have in recent years been very active in TESOL-Italy. They're both based at the Department of Foreign Languages and Literatures at Verona University. Sharon is an associate professor with many years experience in TESOL and English language teaching. Valeria is a assistant professor. So she's in the Italian context, she's an early career researcher, but she's very active and offers some very fresh perspectives on these themes. If you look at their bios, what's very interesting to me is that their research interests sort of reflect the two sides of the ESP/applied linguistics coin, in that Sharon is very interested in language pedagogy and language assessment, while Valeria is very interested in studying specialized discourse, especially in business context and lingua franca context. So they sort of offer their work, and I would believe also their presentation today offer these sort of complementary perspectives on ESP. Their topic for today is English for professional purposes at the University of Verona, and we're very lucky to have them. And with that introduction, I would like to turn it over to Sharon and Valeria.
Thank you, Mike, for that incredible introduction. Hope we can live up to expectations. So welcome everybody. As Mike said, we're going to talk this evening about EPP, which is a branch of ESP. It's English for professional purposes. And we're going to do this by through a course that we have actually created at the University of Verona. So we have a threefold aim, if you like, this evening. First of all, to describe the course and to describe our multimodal approach, which is delivered in blended learning, and which was delivered in blended learning before the pandemic, but has, shall we say, evolved since then. Secondly, to illustrate the ESP framework that we've adopted, which is based on Littlewood's ideas from 2014. We'll talk a bit more about that later. And to describe specific examples of the multimodal work on communication strategies. And this, Valeria will talk about this because it's her specialization. And this is a key aspect of our course. So, briefly, a brief overview of English for specific purposes, just for those who don't perhaps know so much about it. ESP was developed in the 60s, or it became popular in the 60s, and it actually characterized a move, or part of it was a move from a focus on grammatical structures to more functional approaches, which was in line with the need for particular disciplines. It was also based and has always been based on learner needs. And this is partly because the practitioners of ESP are often general English teachers who are adapting their work to ESP contexts. Three key principles that were developed by Dudley, Evans and St. John are learner need, underlying methodology and the practices of specific disciplines, and also the need in ESP to develop appropriate language skills, discourses and registers for the specific disciplines that are being taught. In our case, we're not actually aiming to teach specific registers because this is English for professional purposes. It's not connected to a specific domain like English for medicine or English for engineering. It's a little bit different from this, and we'll say why in a minute. Historically, ESP teaching has been characterized by the combination of a needs analysis and general English teaching strategies, because the practitioners tend to be non-specialist general English teaching strategies. And one of the big problems, as I'm sure a lot of you know, is the difficulty that ESP teachers often have in communicating with specialist teachers of the subject. The question of how efficient this is, basing everything on learner needs, has actually been criticized. And this is something that we wanted to address, along with the fact that, as Littlewood says, although there are frameworks for ESP teaching, there don't seem to be systematic frameworks that are applied generally. So we wanted to try to put into practice Littlewood's framework. So the focus of this presentation, as I said, is the background of our course, where it comes from, why we developed it, our objectives on the course, which are firstly to focus on productive language skills, speaking and writing, but to go beyond that and to focus also on multimodal skills and multimedia skills. Our framework is based on Littlewood's continuum, and this is combined with a task-based approach to learning. Our learners are mainly Italians, and they come from, some of them are university students and some of them are not, some of them are already at work. So the English that they're using is BELF, and communication strategies for this is extremely important. And Valeria will tell you more about that, and we'll show you the task-based approach in action. So welcome to English for the World of Work. English for the World of Work, as I said, our aim is to provide a bridge, and it's a bridge between what is often a theoretical study of English language at Italian universities to the practical world of work. But it's also a bridge between two kinds of learners, who are the university student and the professional who is already at work. The course came about, it was first introduced in 2016, we're now in the 7th edition, and it was based on the needs which we saw in the Cambridge QS survey, English at Work, which was used at that time. It was a global survey to see what type of English was needed, how it was needed around the world. And Italy ranked 5th worldwide for the need for English. In fact, 96% of the companies interviewed in this survey ranked English as an essential skill. And what they were talking about was the importance of practical speaking and writing skills, so formal presentations and email. Okay, as I said, our course is an EPP, English for Professional Purposes course, which is a branch of ESP, but it's not related to a specific domain. So what it means is that we're focusing on tasks or skills that can be applied to different professional contexts. Our learners are university students and those who are already at work, and this means that we have learners with different strengths and different weaknesses. And we have different learner types. And they use different learning strategies. And for this reason, we decided to adopt a blended learning approach to provide more choice of learning strategy for different learner types. So multimodal teaching to meet multimodal learning, varied content delivery contexts. We were already using blended learning in 2016. So this was quite a way before the pandemic, but it has changed, as I said, because at that time, blended learning for us meant having a face-to-face on-site context with the learners actually physically present. And although we integrated the digital tools, we use Canvas Instructure as a platform, and we used tools that were on there and integrated them into our face-to-face lessons. The digital platform was also there as a support. So there was the synchronous, which was physically in class, and the asynchronous, which was online. This, of course, has changed. And so now our context is hybrid, which is one of the strengths, in fact, because it means that students can actually access our course, even if they're not in Italy. So it can be accessed from all over the world. So this is one of the things we've learned. So it's hybrid. So learners have the choice to actually be present in class or to be online through streaming, through Zoom. Okay, so multimodality, multimodal literacy, what does it mean? In language teaching pedagogy, multimodal means going beyond the productive language skills. Not that the productive language skills are not important, but that multimodality is also important. So from the point of view of developing multimodal literacy, we have receptive multimodal skills and productive multimodal skills. So the receptive skills mean things like processing information by multiple means of channels. So watching a video, but also having a transcript, looking at an Instagram post, but also looking at the verbal text. So using multiple channels to actually understand and receive information. In our pedagogy, by means of deconstruction and analysis of multimodal text, so things like analyzing movement, space on images, just the choice of image, what image are you going to put on your profile, the colors people use, the fonts, the size of the fonts. By analyzing these, we familiarize learners with another aspect of multimodality, which ultimately leads to the productive skills. And the productive multimodal skills mean that our learners can produce effective multimodal tests. So it means moving from being an Instagram user to a content creator, for instance. I realize that this is a bit abstract, and I'll give you an example in a minute. Okay, I was just going to say maybe people could switch their microphones off, but I think you have to. So, as I said, this was a bit abstract. So here are examples of, these are some of the things that we focus on in the course. As I said, it's task-based, so we focus very much on the tasks. And if we look at professional CVs, for example, we have university students who have maybe a higher language competence than the people who are at work. This often happens, but the people who are at work probably have a more practical, they have more practical skills about how to put the layout of a CV together. So by bringing these two learners together, we can actually work constructively from a constructivist viewpoint to actually co-construct new knowledge and new skills together. So the professional CVs, a lot of our learners use the Europass format, and they may have, as I said, quite a high level of language competence, but they may not know about how to organize that material, what fonts to use, what colors to use, spacing, these things. So this is for written language, and we're combining the productive writing skills with the productive multimodal skills. Another example is oral presentations. Firstly, we need to focus on the actual presentation, the language, the speed with which somebody speaks, how you deliver content. But then going beyond that, we can also look at the multimedia, multimodal aspects. So if you're using PowerPoint, do you know how to use it effectively? Are you simply putting up slides that are full of text, or are you using your PowerPoint slides to actually facilitate communication with your audience? So this is something that what I mean when I'm talking about multimodal literacy, as well as productive language skills. Blended learning, in our context, it involves a principled choice of media. So what I mean by this is not simply using a video because of the wow factor. Okay, it's Friday, let's use a video, that'll enliven the classroom, but using it because it's actually part of the process. So videos, for example, are used for content. We might have a short video which leads to a discussion, or it might be content that's flipped because the learners then need to practice that in class. It might be a tutorial with instructions. So we have short videos that tell learners how to use Quizlet, for example, or how to create a PowerPoint video that they're going to then upload to the platform as an assignment. Or it might be screen capture with feedback. So, for example, learners might send a written assignment, and we can make a video and give our feedback, give our comments, much as I'm doing now, and send it back to them. So video, these are just 3 ways that video can be used in a principled way. Also video or voice recordings by the students. The students can record role plays in class, so meetings, for example, or PowerPoint presentations. And one of the advantages of doing this is that this video or voice recording becomes a product, and our learners become at first it's quite difficult for them to do it. They never want to do videos. They're saying, oh no, do we have to do a video? But they become quite used to it, and it's actually extremely useful because they then see the videos, they see our comments. So it's like a product, it's like an object that remains, and it can then be studied and edited and developed in other ways. And in the end, they do appreciate it. So these can be studied for specific aspects such as pronunciation, coherence. But as I said, they're also sent to us as assignments, and also we provide video links which the learners really appreciate, to online resources which further maybe what they're studying. Okay, so I said at the beginning that we were developing an interesting framework. Well, I think it's interesting anyway, combined with a task-based approach. And what does this mean? Well, Littlewood talked about a communicative continuum which goes from analyzing language and studying it to putting it in practice. So it goes to the experiential. So on our course, what that means is often reflecting, studying, and putting tasks into practice. But this looks as though it's a linear process, and actually it's not at all linear. There are experiential parts to it, and then study parts, and then more practice, and it all comes together in a kind of cyclical thing. So if we look at an example of this, one of the first modules is creating an online profile for LinkedIn. And this is the task in the end, and it may involve the first phase, which is studying the language that you might need to do this. The second stage is studying models and multimodal aspects, how you might want to put it together to make it to create greater impact. The third stage is to create your own. So we now move towards the experiential. And then we have feedback both from the teachers and from the learners. And that's something that our course participants really appreciate, the peer feedback, the chance to look at each other's work. And so they're not just creating work for the teacher, but they're creating it for each other as well. And this, of course, leads to reflection, and that work can then be edited. And so then we go back to the beginning again. So study the language, study the models, and the whole thing becomes a kind of cycle. Okay, so that's the course and the framework. Valeria will now talk about communication strategies, and she'll give you a very concrete example of how this has been, how we integrate it and put it into practice.
Okay.
So,
thank you, Sharon. Can you show the text on the slide, please? Thank you very much. So communication strategies, both preemptive and solving communication problems, have a very important, crucial role in the workplace. So the ability to use all these types of strategies is absolutely fundamental to the success of business interactions, both in a native language and in international situations where English is used as a working language. Yet, what we've noticed from research in the area is that business English coursebooks at all levels, because we worked from pre-intermediate to advanced coursebooks, show very little attention to the development of awareness in communication strategies and in the training in the use of communication strategies. There are very few activities that raise awareness or try to develop competence in the use of communication strategies. We often find these strategies relegated to language boxes, and even in teacher guides, there's very little attention to these communication strategies. So this is why they have, and of course, studies in the applied use of these communication strategies in naturally occurring business data shows that these strategies are very much used and extremely important, because research on BELF has highlighted the importance of both clarity, brevity, directness, and politeness. So these type of strategic skills are, as I said, very crucial. So this is why they are prominent in our course. Can you change the slide, please? Thank you. So while we will focus on a module where communication strategies are preponderant, we also do scaffolding work. So students do not come to communication strategies all at once, but they are exposed to communication strategies in previous modules during the course. So one example of previous exposure to communication strategies is in an activity on work meetings. So they work with Sharon on meetings, and while they look at the language that is used in meetings, and they look at useful phrases, among these categories of useful phrases, they also find emergency phrases. And these emergency phrases are basically communication strategies. So students look at phrases that they can use to ask for repetition, for clarification, and confirmation. So they do an analytical activity on this type of language. And then they also have a role play or simulation always on meetings. So a productive activity and experiential activity where they may or may not use such phrases, but in the meanwhile, they've been exposed to them. And then we come back to communication strategies in a later module on pronunciation, where misunderstanding and lack of understanding are addressed. So again, there is a reflection activity in this module where students are asked to answer a specific question. How can we develop effective communicative exchanges with colleagues, clients, customers with different lingua cultural backgrounds? Clearly, this focuses mostly on differences in pronunciation and the difficulty in adapting to different types of Englishes. But in this reflection activity, students do show they have already built some awareness of the importance of communication strategies alongside, of course, other aspects of communication. We can see in the next slide some comments from these reflection activities. The first one is a bit long, but the student says the most important thing is to speak in a clear way and be ready to explain and rephrase in case our interlocutor doesn't understand something we say. And of course, it works also in the other way around. So if we don't understand something, we should ask without fears. So again, the use of different strategies, rephrasing, explaining, and asking for clarification to ensure success in communication. And then we have, instead of being scared of diversity and being afraid of not understanding certain expressions, we could just ask our interlocutors to repeat and clarify the expression they used. And again, we have to be flexible and not be afraid of asking for repetitions on or explanation. So they already know by then, they're familiar with communication strategies, and then we get to a module on intercultural communication, which includes a focus on communication strategies. In these examples, we will see, in this case study, we'll see some examples of activities that have been carried out on communication strategies over the years. I'll say that the framework of this section of the module has remained pretty much the same over the years, but the activities have evolved a little bit based on research on communication strategies and also due to COVID constraints. And we will see what happened in a minute. So, okay, if you can show, great. So first, students have a brainstorming activity. So they're asked to reflect, to break the ice, of course, and foster reflection on the topic. And this is the question that they are asked to think about and discuss in groups. What do you think the most effective ways are of ensuring success in international encounters and of avoiding misunderstandings? Think of both behavior and language. Discuss this and share your thoughts with your classmates. So clearly this is a wider question, which also includes differences in cultural values and non-verbal language and behaviors, but still it also relates to communication strategies. So they discuss and they go back and draw from the previous experience of communication strategies in this activity. After the discussion has led to communication strategies being discussed and mentioned in class, we have a listening and recognition activity. So students listen to a phone conversation and they are asked to identify the strategies used. In the last few years, I've used a scripted phone conversations that I role play with a colleague so that the strategies that are used are thought out in advance and multiple. So we have different types of communication strategies occurring in this modal text. In addition, they also have some more reference material. They have links to these reference materials, both websites when they can read more about communication strategies and a file that I've prepared with additional expressions that they can use to introduce the different communication strategies. After that, they have a role play activity. They role play a similar conversation in pairs to the one they've listened to, where communication strategies can be useful to ensure that the correct order is placed. So the different students in the pairs have different information, and so they need to make sure that they all end up with the relevant information. Need to make sure that everyone knows what they have to do. Next, okay. So the following activity, which is let's say it's constrained because there are some rules to this game, but it's a freer activity, focuses on the strategy of paraphrasing. So the students play in teams a game which is similar to Taboo. They are given a list of words, and they need to make their teammates guess the correct word they're using. We also have what I call extra work, because this is something that I used to do if I had time to before COVID, because this is a communication activity with cards, and I found it was kind of difficult to create a variation that would work with students online and offline, or entirely online on Zoom, as we did in the first edition during the COVID emergency. So that it's a communication activity with card, as I said, also played in pairs. Students course participants talk about their university work, if they are still students, or about their actual job, their professional activities, if they are already working. And they pick up cards that they need to play, basically, and these cards have instructions about asking for clarification or offering clarification. I think you can see the cards, Sharon, if you can. Okay, so these are the cards that I used to work with. So this basically ends the focus on communication strategies within the module, which I said is embedded in a wider module about intercultural communication. So students clearly get feedback on each of these stages from both the teacher and from the other students as they work together. This is a very interactive course, so the students work in pairs and in groups a lot. Okay, Sharon, I think you can move on. Okay, and I'm giving the floor back to you for the conclusion of the presentation.
Yeah, so thank you, Valeria. So we just wanted to finish by showing you some of the learner feedback, and this was from the very first course that we did, and it was very interesting because the things that the course components that they found to be the most useful were the portfolio, because we have a system of continuous assessment on this course. They don't actually have a grade as such at the end of it, but they do have a lot of feedback from us, and we give them grades which don't go on the final certificate, so it's not so stressful for them, but it's something that they like to see. And part of this is to create a portfolio. So this involves bringing together all the multimodal work, all the language work, and it also gives them the chance to edit, as we said before, edit work and then produce it again, so improve the work that they've done after they've had feedback. So that's something that they really liked. Another thing that was high on their list was links to materials, which shows a certain agency on the part of the learner, the need to go out and find more materials, do more work. This was also because we have different levels, and our focus is not particularly on language levels, but on being able to communicate and to complete the tasks. So for those people who had lower levels, We provided links to further language exercises if they wanted to do it. This is another thing that's, I could go on about it, but I'm not going to, that comes up in ESP research quite a lot. The idea that learners should have a high level to be able to do ESP courses, which actually we have found is not true, and other people have found this as well. So by providing extra materials for them, then you're actually helping people who have lower language competence, and they can still do the tasks to the level that they're able to do them. The other thing were the videos. The videos they found they liked a lot as well, but other things you can see here too. So the comments from the tutors they found to be very important. Reflection questions, and this is something that I think has increased over the years. Reflection is now much more of a formal part of the course, and it's something that last year they said they really appreciated as well, the idea of reflecting on the learning process, which was new for them, in fact. Okay, so in conclusion, the blended learning course, partly because of COVID, but not only because we already had it, is something that we really believe in, because what it does is that it makes boundaries dissolve. So the boundaries between the traditional classroom and the online space dissolve, they're integrated together, and the work that's done in one can be woven or interwoven into the other as well. Breakout activities can be done between people who are actually in the classroom or people who are online, or they might be organized in different ways. So there are all kinds of possibilities, and blended learning actually produces or gives us the chance to provide more pedagogical choices to both the learners and the teachers, and to increase their agency as well. The two key aspects of multimodality that we focus on are multimodal access to language learning aids. So things like using different modalities to actually study the language for ESP purposes, but also multimodal literacy, which is so key for our world of work, where communication really goes beyond the language competence to multimodal aspects as well. The principled framework of reflection, analysis, study, and the experiential is something that we have found to be effective. And the communication strategies and other aspects of BELF for our learners are particularly important. And once again, we're going beyond the written and the oral, and we're focusing on communication rather than reaching a particular language standard, which is exonormative, and it's not something that we believe in. So thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, here we are.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know that there will be many questions. Yeah, we'll start with Irina, because she also wrote her question in the chat. Irina, please.
Yeah,
and a very quick remark. Irina will be the presenter on Thursday here. So she is also an ESP specialist, and this is just a very brief introduction of Irina.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. And I'm very happy that we have much in common. So a little bit different approaches, and I think you will enjoy my presentation presenting the milestones of the ESP in Ukraine, because we started a little bit earlier. We started in 2000. So that is why we have a very, very experience, many different transformations, challenges, and I will try to share. But I think I would like to say that now I need to revise my presentation, because I also want to make a bridge to your presentation. For people to show how different countries who have never met each other, but they were taking their own ways but they have something in common, something different. It was so, thank you so much, because for me it was very interesting, and I was very happy and even applauding that I see you, that we are doing the same in Ukraine. That is why, you see, it is very pleasant that they're different models, but in general, they have something in common, of course, ESP. And my question is first, is this course obligatory or optional for university students and, as you said, professionals?
No, it's not. It's not obligatory for anybody. It's actually a paid course. It's an extra course. We try to keep the price down as much as possible. How much does it cost, Valeria?
I think it's 450 euros, the last editions.
Yeah.
Which is not much for a 66 hours course.
It's not much. And
what time is allotted? Please repeat that, because it was the second question. How much time does it take?
Okay.
66 hours.
66 hours. But really, how much time does it take? How long is a piece of string? Because so many of the activities are actually provided online. So we actually see students who spend a phenomenal amount of time, and then we see others who spend less. And because people start at different levels, some people may spend more time doing some of the secondary activities, and some people may not. So it depends, but formally it's 66 hours.
Yeah.
In class, am I right? In class or in Zoom or Teams, am I right? 66 in class, sometimes like face-to-face, like we are doing now.
Yeah.
No, it's actually 33 like face-to-face on Zoom or in class. And then the other hour, like each module is 6 hours, 3 of which are in synchronous teaching time, so in person or on Zoom, and then they have the activities that they carry out on their own time. They have deadlines, of course, for the assignments, but they have these assignments, activities that they carry out on their own on the platform that Sharon described earlier.
I will explain why I'm asking, because we have the obligatory course English for professional purposes for master's degree students.
Okay.
That is why. And we also have 60 hours in class, but if you wish, you will ask them questions me on Thursday. And the one more question is very interesting, because as far as I understood, that you are use very widely materials as usual in ESP, and it should be professionally oriented. And that is, it's quite natural that the next question is to the materials. Who is responsible for selecting materials, and what criteria do you use when you, as teachers of English, as I understood, select materials? And thank you for your answers.
Yeah, well, I'll start with this, Valeria, but jump in if you want to. We select the materials, and it's based on a series of tasks that we've developed over the years, and partly it began according to the needs in that survey that I talked about at the beginning, that was done by Cambridge and QS. And it was a global survey, so it actually underlined the skills that people needed. So we started by looking at productive skills, and it was things like writing email, giving presentations in meetings, what else? Lots of things. But we then developed this multimodal aspect because we saw that it was something that our learners found difficult to do. They could maybe write a CV, but they didn't know how to put it down to make it really effective, or they all had Facebook accounts, but they didn't know how to develop a professional LinkedIn account that would be effective. So the tasks that we were choosing, as I say there, and the materials to do these tasks were not linked to a specific domain, because we have learners from all kinds of different disciplines. We had, in the first course we did, we had people coming from medicine, we had a surgeon, we had engineers, we had, what else did we have?
We had also, in the second course, a sociologist, someone who wrote grants for a living. The sociologist even had a PhD and had experience teaching at university level. So like people from many walks of lives. And
yeah. So we weren't really aiming to develop discipline-specific lexis, but we were aiming more to help. This is another thing which I didn't say. One of the things we do when we focus on language, the idea is to help learners to develop their own language. So we provide them with access to, I don't know, to sites like Skell. I don't know if you know Skell. I'll put it in the chat. It's a fantastic language teaching based on corpora. Let me see if I can get it. Skell, and our learners love Skell because they can look at collocations that work or don't work, and so in a way giving them access to materials so that they could develop their own learning was another of our aims.
It's very close what we are doing, really. But then here, that is why I will ask you the questions. It's the burning issue, which is always people who are newcomers to ESP. It's, I would like to say, it's some kind of cornerstone. This magic word grammar, because some people think that grammar, how you deal with grammar within your multimodal. I understand that language, I have caught what you mean, because I know that we are doing nearly the same, but the most arguable question with many newcomers to ESP, it is grammar. How you deal with grammar in your courses?
How we deal with grammar. How do we deal with grammar? Well, we correct grammar, but our focus is communication. So obviously we don't want to leave students with key errors, but one of the criteria is how far do the mistakes that you make actually impede your ability to communicate, I would say. I just see that Ludmila has her hand up. I don't want to interrupt Irina because she's got some really interesting questions, but I was just, but Ludmila has been sitting there for about 10 minutes with her hand up. So Ludmila, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I can wait.
Just a very quick note before Ludmila starts talking. Ludmila is our presenter for the third week. So, and she is, so this is the introduction, a very short introduction again. So please pay attention, and she will be talking about EMI. Ludmila, sorry, but I needed to.
Okay, well, just in fact, I won't be talking much about EMI. I will also touch some of the problems of ESP. Well, but never mind. My question is about this. You said that your students are both university students and those who are already working, right?
Yeah.
Do you put them together in one and the same group, or do you have separate groups? Then if you work with them, do you face any difficulties, or do you have to work differently with these two target audiences? I know just from my experience that while working with ESP students, and while, for example, teaching them English for meetings, well, I see that my second year students are not very much motivated to take this course, just because they have never before taken part in business meetings, and they don't see much point in just acquiring all those strategies, and they don't see much use of doing this. While people who already work, they actually, sorry, this is the note that alarm has ended. Sorry, this is what we're living through. A reality. Just the question is, do you work differently with students with no experience and people who are having experience? And just what these difficulties are about? And
well, we really don't. We put them because, as I said at one point, we've got this constructivist approach. So the idea is that they construct their skills together and they share their strengths with each other. So I think what you were saying is very true. And our university students as well, a lot of them don't have the same practical experience, but they maybe have higher language skills, or maybe they can help with that. Whereas the people who are already at work have more practical skills. But I've never seen students not being motivated to work on meetings, but maybe Valeria, you want to say something about that? Because
yeah, no, I just wanted to confirm what you said. Like the experience I've had from teaching in this course is that there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of sharing. So the students are not only getting, they're not only building thanks to what we teach them, but also because they work in groups with people who have different experiences. So some of them are master students and they already come with very strong language skills in terms of vocabulary and grammar and syntax, for example, and they like complement one another, because on the other hand, you might have someone who might not be as strong linguistically speaking, but they have professional experience. So they kind of feed off one another and they all grow during the course. So like we've never had this type of difficulty.
No, and this idea of growth is really, I think, an important thing, and it's something that at the end of the last course, at the end of the course, they have the chance to give us feedback on the course, to talk about it, to tell us what they think could be changed or what they liked about it. And there were some really interesting stories. There was a story of one girl who said that she had been wanting to do this course for a long time, and she hadn't been able to do it in the last version because there's a waiting list and it's only the first people who get onto it. And her mother had had COVID and had actually passed away during this. But she was so happy that she'd been able to do this course because she thought that her mother would really have wanted her to do that. And it was very, very moving when she told us this story at the end. So growth is something that I don't know, something that the fact of communicating, of focus on communication for professional contexts, developing your skills to be able to present yourself better, to be able to be more effective at work, is something that they all appreciate. I don't know if that answers your question, Ludmila.
Yeah, it does. And just I see that perhaps this collaboration and growth are the key words here. Just because when students are talking to one another with the same people have no experience, who have no experience, this is less motivating than in case they talk to someone whom they can share something with. And that's perhaps a very nice experience, just because this is that spirit of friendship, spirit of support, spirit of learning from each other and getting feedback from each other. And that's I think is motivating enough.
That's why I chose the image of the bridge, because it really is
exactly
from two different worlds, from the world of academic study and the world of actual practical working and know-how, business know-how, and bringing those together is quite interesting. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you. I think there were some questions in the chat. Okay, how much does? I think there
was very interesting question, sorry, about materials. Can you read, if I'm not mistaken, Olena, someone put about tailoring the materials. I found it interesting.
Yes, Svetlana. Sorry,
I think Svetlana
I found it. Do you have problems tailoring the tasks to the learners of various ages and various professional experience?
Not really, because people who have a lot of experience share their expertise with others on maybe on one thing, but there might be something else where they have less experience. So maybe I can remember one case where we had somebody who was very good at at taking a lead role in meetings, for example, and she did it for her job, and she was used to doing that. So she was given a very prominent role in that, and she helped to motivate the others as well, because they could see that this was something that she did in her work, and so it became even more important to them. On the other hand, she was not so good at developing the PowerPoints for those meetings. So that was something where she could learn, because I think it's important that everybody has something to learn, and it may not be a traditional language skill. It may not be a grammar point. It may be something completely different, like creating an effective PowerPoint, or thinking about how you speak. The speed of your delivery when you speak, is what you say understandable? This kind of thing. So I think it's really important to tailor the materials to the different ages and to professional experience, but also to the different levels, which is why we provide language work that the learners can do separately if they have a lower level and if they want to. But our focus is communication and being able to complete the tasks effectively. And sometimes people who have a lower level of language can actually complete a task more effectively.
Thanks so much. I mean, I think that you've answered everything brilliantly. But, you know, I was just interested in there was this very interesting task that you were talking about when people had to guess the words that you came up with. And I was just asking myself, how did you get around that when you had all these people of different ages, of different professional interests? And how would you select, for example, words like that for people to guess?
Valeria, this is
yes,
your...
this is my question. I use common words that might be found in the Word of Work, so nothing extremely specific. But as we said, what we work on is general skills rather than specialized lexicon. So words like meeting or salary, so words that someone with an intermediate, upper intermediate level of English will be very familiar with, or words that we've already met during the course. And then of course they use the skills that they have at their disposal to make the others guess the words.
Okay, thanks very much. I just wanted again to ask you, mainly the learners that you teach, what's their level? Is it mostly intermediate? Is it mostly advanced?
It depends.
It's really mixed.
Yeah, it's very mixed.
Very, we have people who are at who've got proficiency. We have people who teach English, and we have people who are at, I would say, a B1 level, quite a low level.
And
so
basically they all belong to the same group, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much. Thank you very much, and also for the brilliant presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yes, somebody asked if we had a special learning platform, and I put it in the chat. We use Canvas Instructure, which we like a lot. Our university uses Moodle, but Canvas Instructure is actually free. It's free for any teacher to use, and it provides, I don't know, it's a little bit more accessible perhaps than Moodle. And one of the reasons we provide it on Canvas is that we leave the materials for learners to access after the course is finished as well, so that they can go back and access those things. So Canvas Instructure is free. I think if you want to use it, you sign up for it, and then about 24 hours later they'll approve you, and then you can create your course. It's very easy to create, and it's very effective. Don't know if there are any more questions.
I have a question, sorry. And as far as I remember, at the beginning, you said that some of you is an expert in assessment. Assessment is one also of the burning issues And I know Ludmila, she's within the project's own assessment. And maybe here you can share with us some ideas. How do you assess, for example, speaking or writing? What criteria do you use?
Yeah,
this will be the subject of another webinar.
Yeah,
at least a lifelong one.
You do not use any levels, which is
no. We developed our own rubrics.
Yeah, that is why. Thank you. A hint for us, please.
We developed our own rubrics. I was trying to see, I actually published an article on it, but it's in an Italian magazine and I don't think it's available online. It was on the assessment on this course, but we we use continuous assessment. So the learners have an assignment with every module, and the assignment could be written or it could be oral. If it's oral, they often record it and they upload it. We then use our rubrics. And so we have a multimodal rubric, we have a spoken rubric and a written rubric that we use, and they're based on the CEFR, basically. So they're adapted, shall I say, from the CEFR categories. So we give them feedback, we actually give them marks, but those marks do not go on their final certificate. At the end of the course, they then produce a portfolio, and we assess part of that portfolio for writing skills according to the same rubrics that we use during the course, and we give them an overall mark for that. But the interesting thing about that, as I mentioned in passing, is that they'll do assignments during the course. They have feedback on those assignments, both from us and from other learners. So they can then edit what they did before, or they can record it again and put it on the portfolio. So they go through this kind of formative assessment process before they reach the summative assessment at the end of it. And that is something that they appreciate a lot. And then at the end, that we have two formal moments, I could call them, where we have well, first of all, the portfolio, we give them the marks and we give them our comments, and then we have a kind of oral speaking, I'm not going to call it a test because it's a moment where they can present some aspect of the course that's been interesting to them, and they do this with a PowerPoint, because we work on using PowerPoint or using other visual aids for presentation skills, and they get a mark for that as well. And then we have a final discussion where we give them information about what they've learned or where they could maybe work, and they give us feedback on the course themselves. So the whole process becomes quite, as I said, constructivist. It's supposed to be a democratic process.
So that's it. Do you have any more? We have a question from Ludmila. Ludmila, come on.
It's not a question. I just wanted to show my appreciation and say thank you. That was great.
And thank you all for being a very supportive audience as well. Lots of people smiling. So I hope it's been useful. We just thought that it was a good idea to present our model from Italy, and it'd be interesting to see how similar it is to your models. So, yeah.
It was a wonderful idea. Thank you. And maybe our president, Olena Ilyenko, who is also an ESP teacher, will tell the final word. No?
I would like to thank our presenters today. As many people have already written on in the chart, we really appreciate your help, and the topic is thoughts provocative and very close to what we are doing here. So we really need a bridge with the Italian approach, but the bridge is very small. We are so close to each other in our approaches and methods, and of course the audience is a bit different, and this makes really this leads to different approaches we use, but the main principles are really professionalism and our love, our devotion to the profession, and our desire to do the best for the students. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, and we will be looking forward to the next webinars of our series of webinars. Thank you for your support and all the work you have done for the teachers of English in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Us.
Thank you.
Marina, can I also thank on behalf of TESOL-Italy the two presenters for being here today and for sharing with our communities this inspiring and great presentation. Thank you so much, Sharon and Francesca and Valeria. Sorry.
No worry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I have to leave right away because the university is going to close, and I need to leave before I have to spend the night in my office. Thank you very much for being such a lovely audience, and thank you for having us as presenters.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
Mike, would you like to say something?
Bye-bye.
I think everything has been said. Thank you. I mean, I can just say thank you as well. And also, we really are hoping that the speakers today might be willing to contribute a small sample of what they presented in the newsletter, and also
as long as you don't want it tomorrow. Yes.
Oh no, this is for the autumn issue. It's a ways away, and there's a very short word limit, so don't worry.
We have the same problem with our newsletter as well, asking for a long time, and then people say, okay, then okay. But that was a great presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
so
well,
remember,
thank you for inviting us. It was.
If you want to learn more, please visit Irina's, come to Irina's presentation next Thursday. Same time, same link, everything is the same. Yeah. So, okay, bye. See you next Thursday.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.